Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Whately Planning Board. It's Wednesday, October 30th, 2024. I'm calling the meeting to order at 5:03 p.m. We're going to move directly into a public hearing on proposed zoning bylaw amendments. So what I'm going to do now is open the public hearing officially at 5:03 p.m. The next action, now that the public hearing is open, I'm going to read the legal notice that was posted in newspaper of record. So the Planning Board of Whately will hold a public hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, on October 30th, 2024 at 5 p.m. for proposed zoning bylaw amendments. The zoning amendments are related to the codification process of the town's bylaws and are limited to renumbering and recapturing the current zoning code, general revisions to ensure consistency with references, and specific revisions to clarify and update outdated text. So that is what we are doing with this public hearing. I'm going to do, so Pete, I'll give you the floor, thinking I would share my screen showing the articles that we're meeting to have a public hearing about. Does that make sense?
That works.
Okay, so give me 1 second to just get the zoning articles up. Oops. Here. All right, and there are two draft warrant articles that we are discussing and going to vote on. One on Whately zoning bylaw renumbering, and a second article on making these changes, these renumbering and recapturing changes. So Pete, do you want to just give a little overview of what is before the planning board this evening?
Sure. So the town has been working for a few years now, actually, on codifying our general bylaws and zoning bylaws. The codification process essentially is a way to go through the bylaws that have been adopted by the community and properly organizing them, categorizing them, and then putting them into a essentially a searchable data set that will become much easier for the community when we make future amendments to revise those much faster. What happened over the past number of years is the general bylaws, although there were amendments that were made, they were never put in place into the actual document itself. And so it kind of fell out of date, even though we had essentially slips of paper that were in the books referencing bylaw changes. The zoning bylaws, thankfully, were consistently updated. However, through this codification process, now that we're merging all of the general bylaws and zoning bylaws into a code for the community, it does require us to do some minor updates to the zoning bylaws. We're not doing any structural changes, and we're not changing anything about the rules, regulations, the restrictions. This is simply a way to go about modernizing the bylaws and making them easier to access and get to. So there are, as Brant mentioned, there are two articles on the special town meeting warrant, which is on November 12th. The first article is the one that you can see at the top of the screen. This article is simply to we're calling it renumbering. And what it will do is it's renumbering the sections and subsections of the zoning bylaw, inserting article, section, and subsection titles, and updating any internal references to reflect the new numbering and formatting system, so that it essentially, if it used to be Article 3, Section 5, and we now have that as Article 2, Section 4, it went through and we've made those updates. Just to clarify as well, we are working with a consulting group that has done this codification process around the country, but has also worked on the codification through multiple communities in Massachusetts. So we're using their expertise on how to best implement this. They've done this many times over. So thankfully we have a tried and true method, and we then go through and verify the adjustments that they make, or they will ask us questions that the town then responds to. So that's where we are today. But this article, it doesn't have a specific line item red lines. This is simply acknowledging that because it's being placed and combined with the general bylaws, the section numbers, and ensuring that we have consistent numbering of sections and subsections and titles. That's all that this particular article is relative to.
Great, and I just want to say I've been having gone now through 2 iterations of having to update zoning bylaws as a somewhat clunky Word document. I'm so happy that this codification is being done. I've seen the draft output. It looks beautiful. It's making other things like general ordinances much more easily available electronically. I see no downside to this at all. So, and so I would be very supportive of this renumbering. Do we have any questions from any members of the planning board regarding this zoning bylaw renumbering article?
I don't have any questions.
Good, Laura. Sarah, you're good?
Yep.
Any questions from members of the public who might be attending either in person or remotely? I can't always see if people are, if you're attending remotely and you have a comment or question, just come off mute and speak up. Allowing a pregnant pause for that. Somebody has joined the meeting. Sarah, you'll admit them? Good.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Really, can't think of any questions.
I think this is pretty straightforward.
This is about as straightforward as it gets. Very, just changing numbers. Okay, so we'll do a combined vote after we've reviewed and discussed all of these. So we're gonna now move on to the second article, the Whately zoning bylaw amendment. I'll give Pete the floor to sort of give us a summary of what's being done here. If there's anything more to add, Pete.
Sure. So this one's a little more specific in that it is making revisions to the text. And the revisions here are really just, it's what we would call clerical updates, making sure that terms are consistent throughout the bylaw. One of the things that happens when you have a living document and you make amendments to a living document over decades, phrasing changes, but that means you may do that when you add a chapter, but you don't go back and revise that phrasing in earlier chapters. So we are very inconsistent in a lot of our phrasing throughout the document. So much of the revisions here are simply to create consistent phrasing, consistent references, standardizing language. If the board is amenable, I'd prefer to go through one item by item, if that's okay. And then I can explain why each item is being updated. So to start,
I want to talk about the general revisions that are on screen
Sure.
first and go through the specific ones.
sure. Yeah, so under the general revisions, there are 3 general revisions that we're doing. The first is making a standardized update to any reference to Mass General Law so that they are all consistently formatted as MGL C dot and then whatever the chapter number is, and then the section icon and whatever that section number is. So all references for MGL will be consistently referenced so that way also when you do a bind function, let's say, you can do just MGL and you won't miss anything. The next general revision is throughout the bylaw, any reference to Board of Selectmen, select board as 2 words are all changed to our proper phrasing now, which is select board as a singular word. All references to zoning bylaws are revised to zoning by law. We use both phrases throughout the zoning bylaw, and so it's updated to the singular zoning bylaw. And then all references to Board of Appeals, zoning board are changed to zoning board of appeals. So that's one singular phrase. Finally, the other general revision is the word licensed, whenever it's describing an engineer, is amended to read registered, so that it says instead of licensed instead of licensed engineer, it will read registered engineer, because that's actually the process that they go through. Now I'll go through the specific revisions, which are outlined in Appendix B.
Let's get to second to scroll to Appendix B.
You can see there are a lot of general bylaw updates that we're
Here
doing.
are specific revisions to the zoning bylaw. Okay, so take it
Okay.
away.
So in section 171-3, this particular section lists out it's essentially a table that lists all of the established districts that have been created by our zoning bylaw. When there were two amendments that had been made to the bylaw, where we created a planned industrial district and wireless communication services district. Both of those districts are established and they're created in the bylaw, but they were never amended to be added into the list of zoning districts. So this is simply adding them to the list. It doesn't actually create them because you already had them created. It's just making the list consistent with all of the established districts. In 171-8, the table of regulations, which used to be attached to the chapter, is actually added to that section so that you have it immediately accessible within that use regulation section of 171-8. And then also under light industrial uses, there was a use that was listed as burial, incineration, storage, disposal, collection, and treatment of low, medium, and high levels of radioactive waste. See section 171-28. That's being removed. The reason why that's being removed is the AG did not approve of that and it was erroneously left in. I should note, however, that that particular use was not permitted in any zoning district. By removing it, it does not mean that it's now permissible. Any use that is not in the table of uses is by definition not permissible. So it still would not be allowed. It's just we can't have it listed there because originally the AG didn't even approve that regulation in the first place. So this is just cleaning it up since so that we're not inconsistent with what the AG had ruled.
Plus, I believe it was referring, the section 171-28 is not even correct anymore. So
right.
It's erroneous to begin with.
Correct.
Okay.
In section 171-11A, item 5, in the accessory uses home occupations, it's amended where it references the Institute for Traffic Engineers Trip Generation Manual. That is not the correct phrase. The correct reference should be and is corrected to Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. In section 171-13B, item 8, parking spaces, there's a reference in that section for a site plan review board. It is the only time that reference of a site plan reviewing board is ever made within the zoning bylaw. It's never defined. Our planning board is the site plan reviewing board, so this is just correcting it to read planning board. In sections 171-15B, item 9, sub item C, and 171-26D, item 3, sub item E, the references for soil conservation service is updated to the current phrasing, which is natural resources conservation service. In section 171-20B, item 6, this is updating the reference to the code. It referenced Title 5, Section 15-02. That doesn't exist. When we did the research, we found out that the State Environmental Code proper reference is actually supposed to read Title 5, 310 CMR 15.203. It could have been that it was a previous error in that reference, or it may have been at some time when those items were put in that they were the correct references, but when CMR has been updated, we just did not update our zoning bylaw. But the correct reference should have been, or should be, the State Environmental Code Title 5, 310 CMR 15.203. That is also corrected in section 171-23H. Similarly, it had the improper or old reference that is now updated. In 171-25B, item 5, there is a reference to the A&R or subdivision plan creating the lots. We didn't specify what A&R is. We know what it is in the planning world, but we need to be clear about it in the zoning bylaw. So all it is to add in what A&R is in Massachusetts, which is approval not required, and then making the parenthetical on the A&R. For section 171-26E, item 12, this is with regards to cluster development. There again is a reference to State Environmental Code Title 5, 310 CMR, but it was missing the section reference, which is 15. In 171-26H, item 11, and 171-26H, item 12, sub A, sub 4. We are just amending the reference to chapter 40B to make it consistent with the new nomenclature for Mass General Law. So it would be MGL C.40B. In section 171-29I, item 1, sub D, the previous reference was Massachusetts Department of Public Works. That is now the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. So it's just striking Public Works and replacing that with Transportation. This has to do with entrances off of state highways, which is under Mass DOT. Section 171-30G, the second sentence, there's a reference to treasurer. That job title in Whately is now treasurer-collector, so it's just correcting that job title. And sorry, trying to find where I am. Oh, that's the other page. Sorry. Where am I? Okay, I'll look at your screen. Sections 171-32E, item 2, sub A, and 32, that should be 32E. And it is correct in the actual printed warrant, 32E, item 2I2. That's amended so that approved by the department is now approved by the Department of Environmental Protection, creating specificity that it's DEP, that is the department that's supposed to be referred to. In 171-32F, item 1, there's a reference here at the very end, which has to do with all the property line setback requirements. This is simply a grammatical correction so that it's clear that it applies to front, side, and rear yards. And then finally, in 171-34D, items 1 and 2, these bylaws is changed to this bylaw, similar to the general change where we were changing zoning bylaws to zoning bylaw. This also references that we have to change the these to this, and it's just in this one instance.
And that's really all you got, Pete?
That's all.
I can say that I have looked through all of these before tonight and confirmed that the incorrect language was there and these corrections. I've checked the references, so as far as I'm concerned, I have no concern. These are all seem very straightforward. Any other questions or comments from planning board members first? Sarah, good?
No.
Laura, you're good with
Good.
this? Any members of the public who?
Call the vote.
You're like representing all of Whately that's not on the planning board. So you're speaking for this, so we're gonna hold you to that. Okay.
But I'm not a voter, so
Oh,
I don't live in Whately.
oh, well then I guess you're. Okay, you got it wrong. Anyway, but you're a member of the public, so you get to comment. Okay, then, oh, you know, this is a nuance. Do we close the public hearing and then vote, or do we vote and then close the public hearing?
You gotta close the public hearing.
Yeah, you have to close the public hearing.
Okay, well, so hearing no other comments or questions about the matter before us, I'm going to close the public hearing at 5:23 PM. We'll move to our discussion and vote. So I guess we'll, do I hear a motion? So we'll do the usual thing. Motion second, opportunity for discussion, and then vote. Do I hear a motion to approve these articles as presented?
I will forward an article to approve these two these multiple bylaw amendments in these two documents.
Motion's been made,
Second.
seconded, so made by Sarah, seconded by Laura. Any other discussion? Think so? Hearing no discussion, then a vote of our very delicate three-person quorum. Roll call vote, since we're around. Sarah,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
and and Brant is aye as well. So we approve, and I think we are ready to declare victory and move on. Thank you, Pete, for all your good work on pulling these together, working with our contractor. I'm very excited to see all of this come online and
Brant, not to surprise you with this, but we are hoping that you will, as the chair, make the reference to these two articles, though I'm happy to at town meeting explain them.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
yeah, no, as long as I'm able, I think I'm gonna be able to make this special town meeting, so I should be able to
Great.
do that. Okay, thank you and good night.
Thank
Pete.
you.
Okay, very good. All right, so let's move on to the next item on our agenda. So actually what I'm going to do, I know that, we have, I'm sorry, was it, I'm getting confused between Morawski and Olszewski. Who is 261 River Road?
Shesky.
Oh, Sheska, that would be me.
Oh, Chesky, sorry. So Mark, what I'm going to propose we do, we actually received within our 48-hour window, a complete A&R package for 103 River Road. And let me just make, and so if the representative of 103 River Road is on the call, Josh Kiza, I think, is.
103 River Road or 103 Long Plain Road versus 261 River Road?
Sorry, it's 103, it's 261, oh boy.
261 River Road.
Yeah, it's 261 River Road, and it's 103 Long Plain Road, I apologize.
Okay.
So we received a complete package for 103 Long Plain Road. And what I'd like to find out is, I'm just gonna move over here for a second, the owl picked me up. So we have the plans over here. This was, Joshua and Christine Kiza. And I think, Josh Kiza is on the call tonight. Is that true? Can you come off mute and speak up?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you just fine. So
Yep.
what I propose to do, even though because you have a complete A&R package, an application, paid the fee, you gave us all the plans that we need, and we have a quorum here tonight. And there is a rule that says, you know, when we get a complete package, we can receive them at regularly scheduled meetings like this one. So we now we are obliged to accept this for this parcel on Long Plain Road. We have typically up to 21 days to act on it. And I think we can act on it tonight. And I think acting on it tonight would also be informative for 261 River Road, who has not yet submitted a complete package. So I have an application. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna share my screen of the, so this Is this big enough? This is the A&R plan that we're looking at now. Everyone see that? Okay, I've circulated that electronically. Every member of the planning board had a chance to look at it. So I'd like to do is have a discussion about this A&R and see if we can just deal with it tonight. So, Mr. Keyser, could you tell us a little bit about give us your explanation of what you're trying to do with this plan, please?
So myself and my wife Christine are looking to purchase Mike Morosky's property at 103 Long Plain Road. All we're trying to do here is add a little bit more land to the piece of property before we purchase it. So that's what you're seeing. We're just trying to square off the lot a little bit, just gain a couple more acres of land.
Just try, oh, there we are. Just try. Why am I not able to, just want to make sure the people here can see the plan on our local screen. Okay. All right, so what I remember is we recently did an A&R on a parcel here that allowed this little cutout on the frontage of Long Plain Road. So you've got a kind of a flag lot strip with adequate frontage per AR1, 175 feet. And then what's depicted as lot 1 retains enough frontage to be zoning compliant. And so in this plan, there's a dotted line that says lot line to be removed. That's the existing lot line for lot 1. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so what's depicted here is parcel A. That is currently part of the Morosky parcel 13020. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so you're essentially creating this parcel A and then removing the lot line that separates it from what's depicted as lot 1 and combining the two parcels.
Correct. Yes.
I mean, I looked at the rules for A&Rs, and I think we previously discussed with the Morowskis that just to make sure that but they're not before us tonight anyway. So this strip where they have the gravel drive just needed to be wide enough to provide access to the back lot, but here we're just creating, I don't see any, there are no issues here. I don't see, Sarah, do you have any questions about this?
No,
Okay. I think I see no reason why we can't simply approve it and, sign it and get it over and done with tonight.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, all right, well then, let's have a motion to, it's this weird thing, to approve this A&R as submitted.
I make a motion to approve the A&R as submitted by who submitted it? Kitsa?
Yeah.
I'll
Joshua.
second that.
All right.
All right, very good. All right, motion has been made and seconded. Roll call, Laura,
Aye.
Sarah,
I,
and I am I as well. All right. So the A&R is approved. Let me tell you, Mr. Keyser, what happens next. We are going to, after tonight's meeting concludes, we're gonna, so we don't have a quorum physically here, but Laura and I will
We have to
do the
sign it.
signatures on the plans, and I'll sign the application that we've approved it. Then I'll ask at least one other planning board member as soon as possible to get to town offices to add another signature, so we have the required quorum of signatures on the plans. Once we've done that, I'll let you know by email that you can come and pick up the documents that you will need to file this with, the relevant authorities. Is that clear enough to you? Do you have any questions, Mr. Kista?
Okay, no, that sounds good. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right, very
I
good.
think that'll have to be me because I voted on it.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point. Well,
I
we have,
think Tuesday I can do that. I
okay,
will put that in my calendar.
okay, very good. So what I will do is just let the clerk know. I'll set the plan up back in our land use office down the hall from the main conference room like we've done before. There'll be a Sharpie there for you. And somebody, well, you have a key, Sarah, so you can get in. In fact, you can get in at any time. I gave you the
I'll
key.
find that.
Yeah. Yeah, do find that key. It's an important key to
I
not.
put it in a very safe place.
I'm sure you did. Awesome. Okay, very good.
So I may be able to sign sooner.
All right, very good. So then I will move to the next item on our agenda, which is the preliminary discussion of the A&R APR plan for 261 River Road. Let me just give me 1 second to at least a plan was submitted. So let me at least bring that up. So this was 261 River Road. Okay. Stop. That. All right, so I'm displaying the plan. And maybe just before I had some questions about the plan as well. But before we do this, just a little bit about process. So so this is not yet a complete A&R application. We have an electronic version of the application form and we have an electronic copy of the plan. But we do not actually have the printed copies of the plan. We do not have the printed and signed copies of the application. So we're not able to formally receive and act on this A&R. And that was not really the expectation for tonight anyway. So I'll open the floor to Mark to tell us what you're planning on doing and what your questions are. Then we can see what questions we have.
Sure. Yeah, I was aware that I didn't have the full package tonight, but I figured I could just present and if I had any questions in regards to this. So my father passed away last December, and these were his two parcels, the parcel with the house sits on, and then the 30+ acres in the back. Before he passed, one of his wishes was to conserve that farmland. So that's what we're trying to do here, is to put it in an APR. And in order to do that, we needed to create a buildable lot in the back, which basically we created a flag lot for the Whately zoning bylaws to create that, so we can put in an APR to conserve it for perpetuity.
So there is in the zoning bylaw, if you are intending to create a formal flag lot, there is a way to do that, and I think that requires action on part of the zoning board of appeals. Are you aware of that?
Well, not necessarily, we're not trying to establish a flag lot, but basically a buildable lot. And that's why we cut out a 50-foot swath in the front for access to this back piece.
It has to be a flag lot because you don't have enough frontage.
Yeah, this
Correct.
is the issue.
Correct. And
So
the
that's
flag
why
lot
it's a
requires,
flag lot.
right, correct. And the flag lot requires 40 feet. We put 50 feet in. So that was the whole objective behind this, is to create a buildable lot So we can put it into APR with the state.
Okay, so again, I just want to reiterate that in the current zoning bylaw, there is a flag lot bylaw, flag lot provision
Correct.
that states that the ZBA can issue a special permit for the creation of up to one flag lot. So has that been done?
No, that has not been done. The survey on this has just been done and finalized. So this is where I'm at with this right now.
So that would be your intent. One of the things that puzzled me about this plan is that I was looking at it in comparison to, we have the online GIS system.
Mass GIS, or the Whately one.
Yeah, at least the Whately one. And I'm gonna do a new share. So you can see this. Zoom in here. So I want to get to, sorry, the parcel number. Parcel number is what? Well, it's just
21-1.
give that to me one more time, Sarah.
21-1 and also 19. 19 is the house lot.
1-1. So 21. I think I need, so like 20-0.
It's 27, I think, 27-0-21-1.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, so this one, okay. That's what I wanted to look at. So I was looking at the current GIS rendition. Let's see if I can, that one did go away. And what I noticed a couple of things. I noticed that here on the western edge, you know, there's a north-south line and then it heads west a little bit. So there's a little bit of a cutout here. And this, the end of the parcel is depicted in the GIS map, differs from the plan, the draft A&R plan, that just shows us basically a solid northwest line. So I'm just curious what takes precedence here. So I tend to believe that the GIS, the online GIS map that I'm showing here has accurate information. Now, I may be wrong about that.
Though the survey plan holds over GIS. GIS is just that, geographic information. It's not survey grade. This plan was done by a licensed land surveyor. And
What I would assume, so.
Yeah, I use GIS relatively frequently for work, and I have found that the information available online is not always 100% accurate. So I think that the fact that there's a discrepancy maybe isn't a huge concern.
Yeah, the GIS, it's for tax purposes until somebody actually registers a physical survey by a registered land surveyor. That's the real deal.
Yeah.
Just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, that, I appreciate that, and it's good to know. I was just trying to look at that discrepancy and decide whether it really mattered or not, and whether.
The surveyor has far too much to lose by, yeah.
I think that's true. Okay, so just to go back to
and
sharing.
actually, the property to the north of that, which is now, I believe, Dolinsky's property, Jimmy Prochesnik's old property, they agree with that northerly line.
Okay,
Because they're trying to put their property in APR also.
I see.
So my surveyor reached out to their surveyor just to make sure they both agreed on that northerly line, and they do.
Okay. Yeah, I don't, when I looked at this plan, I didn't see any real issues. It looked like the lot one would retain adequate frontage and the setbacks would be adequate. It looks like the Tozier parcel is, I think it's I think, is it, my impression was that it was, pre-existing non-conforming with respect to frontage. But that doesn't matter for this A and R. So, and I noted some discrepancies on some of these lines and dimensions with the GIS system, but I agree that the surveyor plan is what is the authoritative description of the plot, so. So what questions, it seems to me that, your steps are, I mean, well, the planning board could approve such an A and R without any consideration of whether that backlot is buildable or not, because that's not something that we need to take into account. However, and you would just, so you don't have to go to the zoning board of appeals to get a special permit for a flag lot before you submit everything you need to the planning board for an A and R. Do you have other questions for us?
No, so I need to get hard copies and everything that's required to the planning board for the next meeting.
Yes, and so the Form A that's online has detailed instructions, please follow them, about what the submittal requirements are.
Okay,
And I think you've done the electronic submission part of it. So all we need are the physical, the actual paper, and printed on the appropriate size plot plan paper. And must be one Mylar, because that's what you're going to take to the registry of deeds after this is all done. Okay, and so I'm thinking that our next regular meeting is going to come up on November 20th.
Okay.
I was gonna propose that because the normal, we'll come back to that at the end of the agenda, but since the regularly scheduled planning board meeting would fall the day before Thanksgiving, I think there might be a move to move it up to 1 week earlier on November 20th. So do you think you would be, and that would be the next opportunity for us to formally receive a complete A&R package and act on it? Could that work with your
Yeah.
schedule?
yeah, that's plenty. Actually, the hard copies are done. I just did not have time to go to the land surveyor's office to get them. So I do have the hard copies and the Mylars.
Okay, very good. So then
That
I'll
would-
pencil you in for an A&R action at our next meeting.
That sounds good. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank
The
you.
night before Thanksgiving, always a big night at 7-0, right, Mark?
That's true. That's true. All right, thank you.
Yes, not a good time for a planning board meeting. All right, awesome. Very good. So, we're done with our A&R actions. We're gonna move to the update on landscape screening at 7 River Road. Jared is here. I have email from Jared saying that all the plantings. So the summary is that the screening, our site plan review for 7 River Road specified certain plantings along the northern fence line. And it is, for reasons won't go into it, took a little bit to get those in, but they're now in. Is that correct, Jared?
Correct. Yep. All are in and installed. Chris Green, who is our neighbor to the north, did the installation. He has the most broad view of that gap. And so having him do the installation itself was great. I felt really good about having him do the work. He's a contractor. So yeah, it's all set and done. So I think we just powered through it.
Okay, all right. So I think that from the planning board's perspective, that matter is closed. At some point I'll drive down River Road, just eyeball things, but I appreciate that this is done. I'm sure you do too as well, Jared. that we-
Yes, very much. I promised you a photo and I forgot to send it to you, so I will do that as soon as possible.
Okay, I do appreciate that. All right, so let's move to the next topic, the continued discussion of a proposal to allow limited marijuana product manufacturing in the commercial district by special permit. We're gonna do a somewhat shortened version of this because I don't have a full planning board with me tonight, and I'd really like to be able to have everyone participate in this discussion. But I've been doing some research. I've been tapping the expertise of our town administrator, who's got municipal planning experience about this. And so what I'm gonna do, so I have some feedback for you to Jared and Isaac about how we could potentially move to the next step on this. And we'll talk about what that might be. So give me one moment to just do a little screen share here. This is the one. Get rid of that. Okay. Okay. So, we've been discussing DMCTC's desire to allow a limited form of marijuana product manufacturing in the commercial zoning districts by special permit. At present, the Whately zoning bylaws have a single row in the table of use that says, that is not what you're seeing here. It's a single row that says marijuana manufacturer or registered marijuana dispensary. So it's one row for this or that. And the regulations look like the second row you see here. No, no, and no in AR1, AR2 in commercial, and special permit in commercial, industrial, and industrial. And so it was the prohibition in the commercial district that was the issue here. At our last planning board meeting, I discussed the fact, having looked at the definition of a registered marijuana dispensary. So the DMCTC proposal was to modify the restriction in this one row from N to special permit, which would have had the effect of allowing not only marijuana manufacturers, but also registered marijuana dispensaries in the commercial district with a special permit. And I'll just ask point blank, my understanding, Jared, is that you're not concerned or seeking the ability to have an RMD, a registered marijuana dispensary, in the commercial district. Am I correct about that?
Correct, that's right.
Okay. So, and I felt, having looked at the definition of an RMD and having thought about the fact that our commercial district in Whately is a kind of mixed use, combining residential uses as well as commercial uses. And my feeling was that it was a bridge too far for residents in commercial districts to have registered marijuana dispensaries, even by special permit, in those areas. So I was uncomfortable with the kind of shift from no on both to special permit on both. And the way I thought about dealing with this is, first of all, splitting the or into two separate rows. Having one row in our table of use for marijuana product manufacturer and a second row for RMD. That's it. Leaving RMDs alone. So the existing no for AR1, AR2 and commercial will be retained, special permit as before in commercial and commercial, industrial and industrial. And then what I'm showing here is a draft proposal that I circulated coming into tonight's meeting, which would show this special permit for allowing marijuana manufacturers in the commercial district by special permit, but with a footnote. This was the footnote originally proposed by DMCTC. Now since the time I've circulated this, and this is leading to my feedback, I'm not comfortable personally, and it's really not this regulation by footnote is not a best practice. What I think would be better first is, I think we have a definition of a marijuana product manufacturer. This is an example, I think, where we're doing some inconsistent things in our zoning bylaw. We have a marijuana manufacturer, but we don't have a definition of a marijuana manufacturer. We have a definition of a marijuana product manufacturer in the bylaw. So my suggestion here, which I'll need to draft up, or maybe ask, I think what I'm going to try to do is describe it and ask DMC to draft this up. I would like to have marijuana product manufacturer as its own row with the original restrictions. No, AR1, AR2 and commercial, and special permit in commercial, industrial and industrial. So far, I've made no changes to the existing bylaw. If I leave prohibit marijuana product manufacturer in the commercial district. What I want to do is go back to the original 2023 DMCTC proposal that's here. I think what we want to do is add a third row to the table and put in a definition of this more limited notion of a marijuana product manufacturer. Not try to do this by footnote. Actually define a new type of use that would be allowed in the commercial district by special permit. So we would say the general marijuana product manufacturer as defined is not allowed in the commercial district, but with a new definition, a more limited kind of marijuana product manufacturer would be allowed in the commercial district by special permit. And what I want to do is show you the original definition proposed by DMC in 2023. 1 second, I'll put that up. Really should just share my screen. That would make it easier for me to flip around.
Grant, I think we're
Yes.
getting ahead of ourselves. The
Well,
planning board hasn't had a discussion whether to go forward or this, and this is DMCTC's proposal, not the planning board's or the town.
that's correct. And so what I'm trying to, point well taken, what I'm trying to do is provide feedback to DMCTC of what I would recommend they submit, because, for example, I would no longer support the draft proposal that I've circulated involving this footnote. And of course, and I'm just one member of a planning board and we don't have enough members to really have a full discussion of this. So I could well be outvoted on the point that Sarah brings up, whether to go forward with this or not. But I think the right process for us as a board is to work with a proponent like DMCTC to develop what we feel would be the most acceptable proposal. And then we can decide whether to simply, we could have a vote to take it to a public hearing. There are various, we could say we just don't support it, we don't want to do a public hearing. Personally, I would advocate that we would at least take it to a public hearing. But right now, I don't think we even have a proposal that I could even support. So that's why, Sarah, I wanted to sort of have a little bit of a discussion and give, at tonight's meeting, give DMCTC some feedback about what I think might be a more an acceptable proposal, at least to me, that we could then discuss with a full board at our next meeting. Does that make sense, Sarah?
A full board makes much more sense.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So the feedback that I wanted to give to DMCTC was to revise their proposal sufficiently in advance of our next meeting so we have time to look at it in the way that I described. So number one, there would be the existing single row in the bylaw that relates to marijuana manufacturer and registered marijuana dispensary would be split into two separate rows with the existing regulations retained. And we'd add a third row referring to another use. And what I'm showing on the screen is a definition that they had proposed in 2023. They proposed adding this definition to the recreational marijuana bylaw. So now we have a definition of a new limited manufacturing use, which we could then regulate in our table of use. That's my feedback. So I think I'd ask Jared and or Isaac, do you have questions about the feedback? Do you feel like you can act on it and come back to the board with a revised proposal?
Thank you. I appreciate this process with feedback because we want to put together a proposal that the whole planning board can get behind. If you recall, the 2023 proposal was essentially not denied or supported by the planning board. They essentially chose just to not take any action on it. But one of the critiques that was raised at that time was that it read like accommodation zoning, I think is the term that was used in the planning board's feedback, because it seemed to be too closely tailored to, specifically DMC's proposed use. So part of what we were trying to address with the current proposal is something that is more generally applicable. Even though I do see footnotes all the time on tables of uses, I think you're absolutely correct that it's not best practices. So I'm wondering if it might address sort of all of the concerns about the 2023 proposal and this proposal if we proposed having a new category of use called a limited marijuana manufacturer, but we defined it similarly to how we're with similar language to what's in the footnote in the current proposal. Because I am trying to, even though we're proposing this because DMC has an intent to to do marijuana manufacturing at their property at 420 State Road, but we're not trying to put forward something that's going to get knocked down because it's too specific to one applicant. We are trying to propose something for general use here.
Well, I think it's inescapable that what you're trying to accomplish now is in spirit identical to what you were trying to accomplish then. And I was among those who were more or less supportive of what you were trying to do then. I don't know how, my intuition is that in Whately, in the commercial district, because it's mixed use, that residents would just not be supportive of general marijuana manufacturing, even by special permit. And so trying to come up with a way of just, I think what we're trying to do is something straightforward to see, is there a way of defining a kind of manufacturing operation that doesn't trigger the kinds of concerns that residents in the commercial district might have. The whole point of this definition from 2023 was to assuage concerns about use of hazardous and flammable materials among residential use. You're essentially, my takeaway then was that you're proposing something that is not that different from, say, a bakery in essence.
Exactly.
Can I interject?
Please.
I see both sides of what you all are saying. I wasn't on the board for this previously in 2023, so I have maybe a different perspective, but I do kind of think that, to Brant's point, ultimately, no matter what the language is, it is going to be somewhat tailored specifically to your needs, because that's just the nature of how this is going to work, really, because you're presenting it because of your need to us, and we're trying to, frame it in a way that is truthful and also will hopefully answer questions up front. And frankly, I don't know how many other people are going to come forward with the same use. I guess anything is possible, but I don't know that there's gonna be a lot of people all of a sudden coming out of the woodwork for this anyways. But I wonder if you could take some of the language out of both the 2023 definition as well as what you have in the footnote, maybe something to the effect of, does not require the use of hazardous materials or chemicals such as, I think you had like ethanol, butane, and CO2 in your footnote. Maybe there's some way to kind of marry both of those definitions to get the point across. I don't know.
I think we can certainly do that. No, that's very helpful.
So I don't see this as so-called spot or accommodation zoning. I mean, I do see an economic development argument in favor of this, which is we have an operator in town that does cultivation. They are also in town doing retail sales using the product that they grow. And there's an economic development argument to sort of capture all the vertical business within Whately, so that they are doing, and there's a public good argument too, that if manufacturing can't be done, if they're gonna grow it and they have to manufacture it elsewhere, and then, take it somewhere else, do the manufacturing, bring it back into town for sale. So I can see the argument of saying, like, we're going to craft a narrow definition that because in an ideal world, because this is at the Sugarloaf shop, in a year or two, we are going to be most likely doing an overlay district related to the Exit 35 economic development plan. And in some sense, if DMCTC would just wait for a couple of years, we could make this allowable whether by special permit or by right in that overlay district.
Mhm.
But right now, we don't have that tool. We only have this commercial district that is in the Sugarloaf shops and elsewhere in town along 510. So there is yes, that means that there are residents in those commercial districts that can be concerned about this, even this kind of limited marijuana product manufacturing outside of the Sugarloaf shops area. But I think
Yeah, and I think what's important to convey is that retail marijuana and indoor marijuana cultivation are both allowed pursuant to a special permit in the commercial district currently. And I think in every respect, those two uses have more of an impact in different ways, but more of an impact than certainly this limited version of marijuana manufacturing, but even the full version of marijuana manufacturing. And I'm more than happy to propose separating out RMD from marijuana manufacturing. I think the reason that we left it in the first place was concern that people would argue, why would an RMD not be allowed if, because an RMD, it's a little bit, you know this because you read the definition, but just on its face, it's a very confusing term here. It's specifically a medical marijuana shop. So a non-medical marijuana shop, which is functionally identical, is allowed in the commercial district. So yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, we're striving for consistency here. But I'm more than happy to put forward a proposal that's narrowly tailored to this limited version of manufacturing that we have in mind.
because I'm with Laura on this, that I think we should just be straightforward and transparent about what we're trying to do,
Mhm.
what the arguments for and against it are.
Mhm.
I still don't know myself, Isaac and Jared, whether, at least even I would vote to endorse it versus take no position on it when it came to a vote. I'm still thinking about that one. I'm thinking about the precedent too, the fact that we had this discussion, we're trying to accomplish the same goal, and the planning board at that time with different members, after a lot of discussion, decided to take no position and let it go before voters. And I actually still think that makes a lot of sense, particularly since I don't think any of us on the board live in a commercial district. And I think we can use our best judgment on behalf of such people, but I would like to give, this is also why we do a public hearing. And hopefully people who would be affected by this can share their point of view. So I don't want to make any promises tonight that the board would, with this new proposal, not only approve it at a public hearing, but vote to endorse it. But I think you can improve it based on the feedback we've given you tonight.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate that. And I guess, yeah, whether it's endorsed by the planning board or not, having the feedback and having the public hearing process will help us refine our proposal before the annual meeting in the summer. I mean, we have time to
Yes,
refine this, so the feedback is helpful.
that's right. And of course, you can email me outside of this meeting. I can just, if you need clarification on what I was recommending or questions. There were other things in your original proposal that involve other changes to the marijuana bylaw, but I don't know, my own reading of those is that those aren't necessary. That all we would really need is a narrowly crafted definition of a use
Is it on your laptop, Grant? That maybe?
Maybe it's on my
There we go.
laptop. Okay. I think all we would need is a more narrowly crafted definition of this limited kind of marijuana product manufacturer. Let's be consistent with marijuana product manufacturer, because we have a definition in the bylaw of a marijuana product manufacturer. We don't have a definition of marijuana manufacturer. All right?
That's true.
Now that we did this whole thing earlier tonight to use consistent language throughout the bylaw, let's try to keep doing that. Okay. Unless there are any further comments or questions, or I guess, since we have members of the public, any comments or questions about anything you've heard? Okay, and we can move off. Jared, Isaac, you good for now?
Yes, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, very good. All right.
Grant, along these lines, I think we need to add aligning the medical marijuana definitions, which came about first in our state, with the current retail. I mean, there's definitely discrepancies that seem to come up within that we can add to our wonderful list of bylaw things to do.
Okay. I guess maybe I don't want to discuss this tonight, but maybe you can just email me your thoughts about this, because I'm not quite sure what you're referring to, and I'd like to be a little clear on that.
Oh, the RMD versus retail marijuana. There's different,
Yeah, because
but they're now the same thing, pretty much.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Okay, so updates on other planning board projects. And given that we're missing two people, I'll be quick about this. Let me just tell you where we are on the floodplain bylaw, all right? And there's been, I think, really good progress on this. So remember that, in order for Whately to continue to be eligible to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, and flooding is now top of mind these days, we have to upgrade our existing flood hazard overlay district bylaw to conform to a new state model. And we've been doing that for a while. We got stuck with, there was a paragraph in our revised bylaw that placed an approval responsibility on the Conservation Commission, which caused the Conservation Commission to have some legitimate concerns. How do they do this? They have the expertise, but it's not quite typical of what they do. So it took us a while to get to some resolution. And I've circulated some draft, maybe what I can do. So just doing this verbally, let me just show you guys where I got to with the Conservation Commission. But I think we're basically at a point where we could, when we are ready to, hold a public hearing on this bylaw. So this is posted about, the sticking point was in paragraph G. See if I can make this, it's a little bit smaller so more of this can fit on the screen. Okay. So this wording, review by the Conservation Commission, is the result of some discussion and negotiation with the Conservation Commission about their role, what role they would play in this bylaw. So this states that a review is required by the Conservation Commission for all proposed construction or other development in this floodplain overlay district. The floodplain overlay district is defined by FEMA. We have existing maps. They're updating all of this and digitizing this, but that hasn't been done yet. So the existing 1979 era floodplain maps remain in effect and are referenced in this bylaw. So here, the Conservation Commission has to do a review we say that in what projects require such review, new construction or changes to existing buildings, placement of manufactured homes, all of this. Basically, any other development that might increase flooding or adversely impact flood risks of other properties. So that's what the new language is about, what is expected of the Conservation Commission. So they felt that what they wanted to do is provide advice. They wanted an advisory role, not a gateway approve or not approve role. And the new bylaw requires that the town have a designated floodplain administrator. And that role is going to be filled by our community development administrator, who we have just recently made an offer to, and we expect her to take position in early November. So in this version of the language, the commission shall issue an opinion to the floodplain administrator as to whether the project as proposed is likely to increase the risk of flooding, etc. All right? And then the commission at its discretion may suggest conditions which could mitigate those risks that they've identified. And the floodplain administrator shall consider the commission's opinion and any suggested conditions when determining whether the proposed project complies with the bylaw. And this language, I'm going to get the Conservation Commission to formally approve this language, but thus far, this seems to be what they're comfortable with. So some steps, some next steps for them and for us. The state needs to review this bylaw to make sure that indeed we are conforming as to their model as they require. So I've submitted this draft to the state and they are conducting their review. I don't have an outcome of that. And I would like to have an outcome before we do any kind of public hearing. And I said, I'll want the Conservation Commission to at least at a meeting, review and vote on this to make sure that we have their support. We don't have to do any, we have an existing map that shows the boundaries of this floodplain overlay district, which can be used for residents, education and information. We have a frequently asked questions document that is, I think is pretty accurate about what this bylaw does. So I think we're more or less ready with just a couple more steps to vote to take this to a public hearing. So my ask of all of planning board members is to give this bylaw a read and see if you have any comments or questions about it before.
Okay.
And I will hope that we'll have again a full board at our next meeting and we'll have a discussion about that. This is the kind of thing where because of the cost of public hearings, we may try to push this a little bit into 2025. Since we're targeting this for annual town meeting in 2025. But if we can combine any other things that we're doing, and pay one set of fees, that may be how we do it. Okay, so that's where we are with floodplain. I'm not gonna talk about ADUs, except to say that this is something I want to talk to JD about. We do need to update our accessory apartment regulations to be conformant to the new state rules about accessory dwelling units. There's been a lot of discussion. Greenfield's kind of a hotbed for discussion about ADUs and concerns that people have about ADUs. So I'm going to want us to, once I feel comfortable that floodplain is in a good place and ready to go, I want to probably turn our attention to ADUs. And Oh, yes, Sarah.
What's been the turnaround time for the state for looking over these? Do you know?
They said it would take about 30 days.
Okay,
that
so it
was
could possibly be
weeks.
ready for next month?
Yeah, I think we should know by our next planning board meeting. This is not like an attorney general's office review that could take 90 days or more. And if they don't get it to us by our next meeting, then we'll just push it to another meeting. I
It'll be
mean, I
great.
think,
This one's been on our, we've been working on this for a long time.
yeah, and the person we've extended an offer to as community development administrator expressly said she was interested in the whole floodplain piece.
Oh, good.
So that was an attractive, it was.
Nice.
The job more appealing, so it looks like she really wants to take this on. I think our previous community development administrator was less enthusiastic about being the floodplain administrator. I don't have any other updates on board projects to either you, Sarah, or you, Laura.
I do not.
Okay. There's still some
I
things
have
that are.
gotten, I've gotten information from the town accountant. It doesn't mean I've taken the time to assess it, but baby steps.
Good, good, yeah. And I will want to follow up again, once some of these other fires are kind of back to embers, follow up with you around the whole subdivision regulations update, make sure all the suggestions we'd had about simple changes are over to you, and maybe you could do a new markup of it that we could start to consider at a future meeting. All right. So, stop sharing this. I think then, we can do approval of the minutes. With that, approve minutes of our last meeting on September 25th. So the draft meeting minutes. And I guess I'll just simply say, they were circulated at least a couple of weeks ago. Planning board members have had a chance to read this. Any questions or corrections to the minutes of the meeting of September 25th?
Nope.
Sarah, good? All right, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I will put forward a motion to accept the meetings, the minutes meetings from September 25th as written.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote, Sarah? That's a yes?
Aye.
Yes, I'm yes, all right, minutes are approved. Okay, so now we're in the topics not reasonably anticipated. I'll just say, like I said, let's see if we can, can we agree that we'll do our next meeting on November 20th?
That should be fine.
Sarah?
Yes.
So you're good with November 20th instead of November 27th? Awesome. Let me also update you guys on, this is like, as of this morning, we received regarding the land use assistant, the person who supports the planning board administratively and the zoning board of appeals administratively. We reviewed, we had 9 applicants, 9 applicants. We down selected that to 4. We interviewed 3, all which were great, and one slightly, ever so slightly stronger than the others. And so Pete and I have agreed, along with Deborah Carney of the ZBA, to extend a conditional offer to this other candidate, whom I will not name tonight. But I'm very optimistic that we will soon have a land use assistant to help do all the administrative things that help us be successful. Cool. And I have no other updates.
I just let the Ag Commission know to talk to see if they can also get onto that position. So I don't know, but I had them sent them off to Pete, so.
Good, good. I know that there is some other boards and commissions interested in
Mhm.
administrative assistance. And then it just starts to get complicated with all of these boards having night meetings and
Right.
but Pete's on top of that. Okay. I think we can be done for tonight. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Sarah had her hand up.
Oh, yes,
right.
definitely motion to adjourn.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, we're not gonna vote, we're adjourned, until our next meeting on November 20th.